Something's creeping, it's right outside. So come on in, and don't be shy. We've got ghosts and UFOs. Brace yourself, get ready for the show. Don't be afraid of the dark. The fun's about to start. Nightmares our tales will inspire. Oh, tonight at the Scaredy Campfire. Have you heard tell of a demon next door? Or maybe a cryptid on the lake shore? There's nothing too strange for us here. So if you're ready, stamp out your fear. Don't be afraid of the dark. The fun's about to start. Nightmares our tales will inspire. Tonight at the Scaredy Campfire. Whoa, whoa.
Welcome back, brave campers. The fire crackles low, the night grows still, and the air hums with the weight of untold secrets. Tonight, we venture deeper into the unknown, where footsteps echo into empty hallways, where faces peer from mirrors a second too long, and where the line between dream and reality blurs into terror. Grab your blankets, steady your nerves, and listen close. The shadows are stirring, and they've brought stories to share. Imagine being so absorbed in your game or show that the world around you fades away, until a voice so familiar breaks the silence. A casual sentence. Footsteps. Nothing unusual, or so it seems. But what happens when that voice turns out to belong to no one at all? Tonight, we unravel a childhood memory that flickers between the mundane and the paranormal. This chilling tale comes from u/lone_wolf_7895 on Reddit. So this was a couple of years ago when I was around 10 or 11. I was in the living room. For context, the chair I was sitting in is right next to the doorway in the living room, and if you leave the living room through that doorway, then you go into the hallway. And in the hallway, if you turn in one direction, then you go into the kitchen where the basement door is, and in the basement is the laundry room. But if you turn the other way to the opposite side of the house, then you'll be able to get to my mum's bedroom. I don't remember exactly what I was doing. I was probably either watching something on TV or playing a game, but whatever it was, I was really focused on it. And that's when, literally right behind me, in the doorway, I heard my mum say something along the lines of, "Hey, I'm gonna go do the laundry." As I said, I was really focused on what I was doing, so I didn't look over. I just said, okay, without really ever losing my focus. I heard footsteps go towards the basement, and I thought, what was that? Then a few minutes later, I stopped what it was that I was doing. Again, my memory is so bad, so I don't remember why very clearly, but I think I wanted to ask her a question. I got up and went to the basement. I looked down the steps, but the light down there was off. I was confused, but I just heard her go downstairs, so I called her name, to which there was no response. Even more confused, I turned on the light to the basement and went down into the laundry room, just in case she didn't hear me maybe, although that wouldn't make very much sense. But no one was down there. The whole basement was completely empty. I went back upstairs and I went into the kitchen and called for my mum again. That's when I heard her respond from her bedroom. It turned out that my mum hadn't left her room for the past 20 minutes or so. I asked her about the laundry and she told me that she didn't need to do the laundry and that she never went into the basement. To this day, the memory still creeps in. The voice, the footsteps, the empty basement. Was it just a trick of the mind? A child's imagination? filling in the gaps? Or did something else speak that day, wearing a mother's voice like a mask? One thing's for sure, when the familiar turns unrecognizable, the fear becomes unforgettable. It was supposed to be a fun night. Two kids excited for sleepover snacks and whispered secrets. But sometimes, when darkness falls, old spirits wake. What if a house remembers its pain? What if a presence never truly moved on? Tonight's second story isn't just a memory, it's a warning. Submitted anonymously, this is the kind of first encounter that changes everything. It was a cold, dark day in November. I was 11 years old and spending the night at my step-cousin's house. I absolutely loved hanging out with her. We always had so much fun together. This was supposed to be just another normal day. My step-cousin, let's call her Katie, was 12 at the time and home alone when I arrived with my backpack. I was excited as we talked and planned fun activities for the next day. A bit of backstory about Katie. Her father had passed away a few years earlier due to alcohol poisoning in her bedroom. That same bedroom we were supposed to sleep in that night. At the time, I didn't know that he had died in her room. All I'd heard was that it happened somewhere in the house. Her mother was extremely private and never shared details about his death. She almost never talked about him. Katie was devastated for years, and honestly, who wouldn't be? Something like that changes a person. I never knew what her father looked like because my uncle had just married her mum that year. By that point, I'd known Katie for about 3 years. Anyway, back to that night. I had just arrived at her house, and after a while, Katie mentioned she needed to take a quick shower. I didn't think much of it and told her I'd wait for her in her bedroom. She headed to the bathroom, locked the door, and turned the water on. I was sitting on her bed when, out of nowhere, I heard a knock. It came from her closet, a loud, deliberate knock. I froze for a second, unsure if I'd imagined it. But then it happened again, louder this time. My heart started racing as I stood up and slowly walked closer to the closet. The closer I got, the louder the knocking became, and then, standing face to face with the closet door, I felt it. This overwhelming sense of darkness, like the air itself had turned heavy and suffocating. It was terrifying, and I couldn't move. The knocking suddenly stopped, but before I could catch my breath, I heard the TV in the living room turning on and off by itself. The house was pitch black except for the light in the hallway. I don't know why, but that made everything feel even more unsettling. My fight or flight instincts kicked in and I ran out of a bedroom, through the kitchen and into the hallway. When I stopped running, I realized the TV was off again, and the living room was completely silent. I could still hear Katie showering in the bathroom, completely oblivious to what was happening. I stood frozen in the hallway, staring into the pitch-black living room. Suddenly, the TV turned on again, its flickering light cutting through the darkness. That's when I saw it. The reflection of her father's face appeared on her baby picture hanging on the wall across from the TV. He looked confused, almost like he didn't understand how he was there. Then he saw me. Our eyes locked. His eyes were pitch black, completely void of life or emotion. I felt an icy chill shoot through me as we stared at each other. It lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Then, just as suddenly as he appeared, the TV turned off and he was gone. I was left standing in the hallway, shaking uncontrollably. My eyes were fixed on her baby picture, which now looked completely normal again. But then, in the corner of the room, I saw him. A man in a black leather jacket, standing next to the TV. His back was turned to me. He didn't move. He was just standing there quietly. I let out a quiet gasp, and he heard it. Slowly, he began to turn around. I started backing away, and he started walking towards me. His eyes were pitch black, and he had this twisted, evil grin on his face. His footsteps echoed through the house, heavy and deliberate, like he was a real person. I couldn't look away. He kept smiling, kept staring at me with those black eyes, and I just kept backing up until I reached the bathroom door. I turned around and pounded on the door with all my strength, too terrified to say a word. Katie opened it, shocked at the sight of me. I was shaking so badly I could barely speak, but eventually I managed to choke out, "Your dad is outside." What shocked me even more was her reaction. She wasn't surprised. Terrified, yes, but not surprised. She told me her mum saw him sometimes too. We stayed locked in the bathroom until her mother got home. When we told her what had happened, she believed me without hesitation. She even admitted that she'd seen him a few nights earlier, smoking a cigarette on the balcony. She pulled out an old photo album and flipped to a picture of him. I immediately froze. It was him, the man I'd seen, the leather jacket, the short brown hair, the same evil, soulless grin. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining it. I could feel the evil radiating from him when he came at me. He didn't want me there. I wasn't welcome in his home. I will never forget that night, and even now, many years later, talking about it still makes my skin crawl. To this day, that face, those black, empty eyes, still haunt her. A reflection in a baby photo, a shadow by the TV, a soul that refused to rest. Was it grief, regret, or something far darker? One thing is certain, not every spirit fades with time, and some homes never let go of the dead. A new home, a fresh start, bright walls, clean floors, no old energy to cling to. But what if it's not the age of a house that invites the unexplainable, but the space itself? Sometimes a house doesn't need a history. Sometimes it writes one with you inside it. This story, shared by u/Big Laddie Dong Legs on Reddit, takes us deep into the heart of a home that should be safe, but isn't. My wife and I moved into a newly built house in a housing estate in the west of Ireland 5 years ago. It's a very bright, modern home and has a good overall energy. However, very early on I got creeped out feeling when putting things in the closet or storage in the attic. The attic is fully converted into a bedroom with a full bathroom, and it was done at time of build. Proper stairs, dormer window, etc. It's not dark and is pretty spacious. The closet is right on the attic landing, so it's right in the center column of the house, meaning it's surrounded on all sides by other rooms, bathroom, landing, my office, and a crawl space, and it has no windows. Where I used to sit in my office, the closet was over my right shoulder, and I used to feel something touch my hair on that side. It was as if someone was flicking a single hair very lightly. After a few months of this, I moved my desk to the opposite side of the room, and now it happens over my left shoulder, a direct line from where the closet is behind me. No windows that side of the room, no heaters, and it's always the same place. I've also heard talking. It's more like three conversations all layered on top of each other at once. It's only for a second or two, so it's just whispered gibberish. The second I turn around, it stops. I tried ignoring it until one night my wife said she felt like someone was watching her at night from a bedroom, walk-in closet, which is right below the closet in the attic. Again, it's fully surrounded by other rooms with no windows. She said she can't fall asleep with her back to it either. Another night I was going to bed. I usually stay up later than my wife because I work from home, and I noticed a shadow, or more like an absence of light or a void on the landing. I actually walked past it, and when I turned around to take another look at it, stood up and swooped towards me and went over me. It made me take a step back in a defensive reflex to it. At this point, my wife and I had been comparing our experiences regularly, and when I told her of this, she was really creeped out. She told me she forgot that one night she woke up and something was at the foot of the bed, and when she sat up, it did the same thing, swooped towards her and upwards and disappeared. There's been other things happening too. We've heard the sound of our bedroom shutters opening when we're downstairs, that distinctive sound of the magnet opening and them folding and hitting the wall. I go to investigate and they're closed, nothing put out of place. Also, our shirts get 3 tiny holes in the same place that we can't explain. It started out just my wife's shirt would have 3 perfect holes in a triangle to the left of center, near the bottom. Not pierced holes, just perfect tiny circles in a triangle. always the exact same pattern and shape. I thought it was something that was catching on at her work, or her car seat belt, or the washing machine, but then after 6 months it started happening on my shirts and t-shirts. We've switched cars multiple times. We obviously don't wear the same belt. I've checked the kitchen counter for something that we might catch on when doing food prep or washing up. Nothing. No idea what is causing it. Also, my wife sometimes gets unexplained bruises on her legs and arms, not just in the morning. She'll notice a huge bruise form while we're sitting watch TV that wasn't there an hour ago. Anyways, a few nights ago I saw it again, just in a ball in the corner, but only visible when didn't look directly at it. Hard to explain. It used to be concentrated in the center column of the house, but now it's on my side of the room, which has never happened before. We're reluctant to do anything to get rid of it in case it gets worse. Should we? It's not an evil feeling, but it is weird. The void figure is weird, and it's showing up more often. A shadow that stands when you look away. Bruises blooming without reason. Shirts marked with a perfect triangle, as if tagged. Whatever lives in the center of that house doesn't want attention. It just wants presence. And now it's no longer confined to one corner. It's spreading, watching, waiting, because some things don't announce themselves with violence. They slip into your life in silence and stay. Some spirits whisper, some linger in shadow, and some smile. When your family moves into a 500-year-old home, a few creaks and chills might be expected. But what if something in the house doesn't just watch you? It grins at you? What if it waits at the edge of your vision until it no longer needs to? This unsettling encounter, shared by u/butterfly definition on Reddit, is more than a haunting, it's a warning. So my family moved in June last year into this new house. It's old, 500 years old, and my family had some things happen to us, especially me. First off, my dad was renovating alone in the house. He wanted to get something from the car. He searched in the house hall for his car key, and then he went outside because he thought the key was inside the car. It wasn't, so he went back inside only to find the key on a sideboard. He swears he looked at first, and he didn't put it there. So I always see things in the corner of my eye or things standing at specific places, and everyone's too always sees them there. Then the second incident was a family friend of ours. She's calling herself a medium, and when she entered the house, she said, "There are spirits here, but not bad ones." Next incident, my stepmom walks down the stairs and feels, cliche I know, a cold running down her spine, breath on her neck, and a voice saying her childhood nickname. Next day, my dad wakes up at 5 a.m. and walks into the garden to smoke. It is still dark, and sees two yellow eyes staring up at him. It was a black cat staring at him, and he tried to make loud noises, but she didn't go away. After 5 minutes, she just walked off. I am personally seeing a thing in this house. I don't have a name for it, but I'm just gonna use the female pronouns for it. She always smiles. Big grin, eyes wide open, smiling at me. She has claws and is about 2 meters tall, and I feel like she's waiting around the next corner, about to yank me into the dark where she comes from. I see her in my head, chasing me up the stairs, or when I stand on top of the stairs, she pushes me. I sometimes wake up with big scratch marks on my arm. It's really scary. She's always smiling, eyes wide, teeth bared, claws ready. Whether she's in the stairwell, the hallway, or just beyond the veil of sleep, she's never far. Not when you feel the breath on your neck, not when the scratches bloom on your arms. Some spirits don't come from the history of the house, they come for you, and once they do, they don't plan to leave. Some hauntings aren't bound to old homes or cursed objects. Some choose you. For Reddit user, some random question what began as a strange unease in a laundry room soon became a trial of escalating, unexplained violence. Blankets pulled, fans thrown, and pots pushed mid conversation. And worst of all, it doesn't matter where they move. This story isn't about a haunted place, it's about a haunted life. It all started sometime nearly 3 years ago. I want to emphasize that prior to that, I didn't have any paranormal experiences, although I have always been fearful of ghosts and entities. So it all started on an apartment on, let's say, Place A, where I live alone with my cat. The apartment was big and it had a laundry room with an eerie vibe. It always felt like being constantly watched by someone. I always were hesitant to go there, so I usually did my laundry somewhere else and the door remained mostly closed. The rest of the apartment was fine, and initially I found nothing weird with it. However, at some point I started noticing how some lights were weirdly turning on after I went out, which initially I thought it was just my memory being sloppy or me leaving them on when having some rush. But apart from that, everything was right. Most nights were peaceful, and during the day, it was a nice place. After some months went by, my girlfriend is coming to spend the weekend, which we actually did a lot on that time, and all nights went without any issues. However, that night was different. Just a little bit after going to sleep, I woke up when I heard the noise of something hitting my guitar that was on the floor. It was the blanket that was completely on the floor, as if something had pulled it. When I looked at my girlfriend, I saw her already awake, and she told me, very scared, that she felt something pull her legs. I'm aware of weird things that we might do when falling asleep, and my first explanation was that she had some kind of movement that pushed the blanket on the floor. I went to sleep, and then the next day I found that the blanket was very far from the bed. But again, I tried to just went by the explanation of her having a spasm before sleeping. But then some nights I started noticing weird noises, such as something scratching the window of the bedroom that was just above the bed, or doors moving. My cat was with me on the bedroom, and she seemed to hear the noises as me, and I could see her pointing her eyes and attention to the places the noises were coming from. Back to the laundry room, one day doing laundry, the feeling of being watched was just too intense, and I had to exit the room, turning off the light and then closing the door. That night, the scratching was too loud. I went to the kitchen to get a glass of water. When I found the light of the laundry room completely on, it wasn't a bulb malfunction, the switch actually toggled, and my cat absolutely refusing to enter the laundry room. That night I decided that I had enough and started looking for a new apartment. Forward in time, I got another place, let's say Place B. This time my partner and I decided to move on together. This place was nice, and we forgot about the weird events on Place A until one day. We were chilling on the living room, and then a fan that was stable on the floor suddenly goes flying. I'm not trying to exaggerate things. The fan was thrown at least 2 meters from where it was. This a heavy fan, which I have struggled to move because of its weight, so we couldn't explain how that happened. During several months, that was the only weird event. Until another day, we were talking about her grandpa that was very sick and how we both had the same dream last night where we were visiting him. While talking about that, a pot that was in the middle of a table also gets pushed from nowhere and falls very far away. We both saw that. We were with our cat, and at that point, we were terrified. We started considering the chance that there was something that we have brought from the previous apartment. I always try to think rationally, but it is very hard to do so when a pot just goes flying and nothing is near. Then we moved to another place for work reasons, and we were just waiting for the event to confirm to us that this something doesn't care about different places, it just seems to follow us. Today, as we were doing the meal prep for the week, we saw how a dish was pushed from a table, same as the other incidents. It is also interesting that apart from the random things getting pushed out of nothing, we don't experience any other things. We sleep very well. I sometimes wake up in the midnight to have a glass of water, and I haven't seen anything weird. It is just this occasional phenomenon of things getting pushed by apparently nothing. We are both non-religious, and we haven't tried anything for this. Has anyone struggled with something similar? Is there something that we should do? No apparitions, no shadows, just objects, quietly shoved by invisible hands. Again and again. From apartment to apartment, the pattern holds. It doesn't chase with claws, but with presence. And maybe that's worse. Because if it isn't tied to a location, it's tied to you. Some forces don't need a reason, they just stay. There's a special kind of dread that comes when the dark doesn't just watch, but reaches back. When two people see the same impossible silhouette, taller than any man, standing where no one should be, in an ancestral home, thick with 50 years of whispers, something waited in a corner that shouldn't have been dark. And when dawn came, the worst part wasn't what they saw, but that they both saw it. This chilling account comes from Reddit user u/disastrousbag 062621. This happened around 2022, 2023-ish. Please bear with me, English isn't my first language. Me and my boyfriend were living at my family's ancestral home in the Philippines. Our house is around 50 years old at this point, and growing up, I've heard a lot of stories and folklores that surround our house, but never really believed in them until this incident. It's almost midnight and my boyfriend was already sleeping while I was watching YouTube on my phone. Our room is a rectangle room and our bed is facing the windows. My boyfriend was already sleeping soundly while I was watching YouTube on the bed while facing against him. All of a sudden, he got mad at me for being too fidgety and said that he woke up because I was tapping his foot. I said to him that I wasn't doing anything, and not thinking much of it, I just said that maybe he's dreaming. FF to me watching for another hour until I fell asleep. At around 2 to 4 a.m., I suddenly woke up and I was so confused because I thought I was dreaming. While I was looking around the room, I noticed that the right corner of our room was very dark, which was weird because our very flashy internet router was supposed to be there, and now it's just pure darkness. I looked up at the corner waiting for my eyes to adjust until I saw a very tall shadow of a man. I was looking at him for almost 10 seconds without blinking and adjusting my eyes if I'm seeing correct. The shadow of his head is almost at our ceiling. Again, thinking I was dreaming, I brushed it off and went back to sleep. The following morning, my boyfriend was so grumpy that he wasn't able to sleep much last night. I went to the toilet to pee, and when I came back to the bed, I said to him, "You know, I had a weird dream last night. I woke up and looked here," me pointing at the corner, and I saw, before I could finish, he said, "You saw it too? The tall man?" I had goosebumps because of what he said. I said to him that I saw it when I woke up in the middle of the night. He said he saw it when he woke up and got mad at me because he felt tapping on his foot. He didn't say anything to me. He didn't want me to get scared, lol. Needless to say, we called a priest and have him bless our room with the whole house. We didn't have any incidents before and after that. The priest's blessing silenced the house. The shadow never returned. But on certain nights, when the wind rattles the windows just so, they both hesitate before looking at that corner. Because some truths are worse when shared, and some doors, once opened, don't fully close. Some grudges run deeper than blood, deeper than time. In a centuries-old European village where the land remembers every feud, one man's defiance of his neighbors awakened something older than the stones of his 500-year-old house. Something that didn't just threaten him, but danced in the moonlight, green and glowing, where the cliff met the sea. This is the story of Reddit user u/0101010111, a skeptic who learned that when old families say they own the land, they might not be speaking metaphorically. I've posted as an answer in another thread, but as I have finally taken the courage to take it out of my chest, I'll widely share it in its own thread. Here it goes. I have these neighbors in a tiny European old town. They are a family whose matriarch was born there, and their lineage goes back 5 to 10 generations, always residing there. It's the countryside, and they have owned and worked the land for centuries. They are not good people, but I never thought of them as bad people, just nosy neighbors. So 15 years ago, I bought an old house and a barn there. The place was 400 to 500 years old and required a lot of work to be livable again. So this family didn't mind me and were more or less welcoming or neutral to me becoming their new neighbor. Fast forward to 2 years post COVID, my old house restoration is finished. I have also built a new house in the land behind, and the barn is being renovated into a beautiful stone house. Now, the family neighbors see me as a threat to their Airbnb business and start creating problems and attacking my construction permits. I motored through just thinking they were going to move on and accept that I too would eventually rent my charming buildings out. But they don't, and the eldest son, who is in his 50s and still lives with his parents, shows up across my living room with a scythe in a dark winter late afternoon. He's 30 meters from my partner, our baby daughter, and myself in a rural track that leads to the ocean. Our relationship being strained by their constant harassment, I avoid confrontation and tell my partners to stay in while I check if all doors are locked. I stay there, angling the scythe as in a ritual the night falls and his shadow is still there, in a dance that mixes posture with some branches and high grass cuts. It lasted 2 or 3 hours. My partner was spooked, and I was considering my options. I shared this with a cop friend of mine who told me to officially report it in the station, which I didn't. That same night, I wake up around 3 a.m. to pee, and as usual, I look out of the skylight towards the ocean. 300 meters south, the edge of the cliff is visible, and the rural track bordering my land takes a few sharp turns up to the cliff and then disappears, dropping into the ocean 70 meters below. There was some moonlight which made this landscape visible, and right where the track meets the horizon and drops into the ocean, there was a green light human figure more or less swinging in a trance like. I pinched myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Then, while I was still watching that surreal sight, a thick carpet of fog started covering the cliff, and the green light figure came through the track, floating on the edge of the fog, and disappeared behind my hedge, pretty much where the older son was practicing his scythe fu earlier on. I felt the hair on my back stand up and went back to sleep wondering what in hell had I just witnessed. A few days later, when I was finishing tidying up my garden by dusk, more or less 3 meters behind the hedge across the track, where the older son had done his crazy sky thing and the green thing had disappeared, I felt a strong pain in my chest and was taken to the nearest hospital. I had had a heart attack. The heart attack passed. The neighbors kept their distance. But on certain moonlit nights, when the fog rolls in from the cliffs, he avoids looking out of the skylight, because some things don't stop at property lines. Some hungers are written into the land itself, and that scythe wasn't just cutting grass. What happens when the walls remember more than the living? When a house holds on to its past so tightly the dead forgets their guests, not residents. Reddit user u/TWTSH learned the hard way that some doors open both ways and some shadows never left. I know this will sound crazy without any evidence, but let me explain. My parents used to mess around with Ouija boards all the time in university. They used to tell me stories that ghosts would come visit them in the night, all in black, stand at the ends of their beds whispering to them. I never believed any of it until we moved houses. The previous owner's husband passed away in the house along with 8 cats. The house is the oldest in the town and has a lot of activity occurring. The day I went around for a house tour, I saw 2 cats in the lounge, one white that darted across the room right to left and another all in grey. I told the lady who owned the place, I love your cats." She replied, "What do you mean cats? I only have one." That was the first time I couldn't explain what I saw. I thought it must have been a stray cat, but 2 nights later, I suddenly wake up at 6 a.m. to my cat meowing at the door to my bedroom. The door was open and it leads out into a long hallway. I honestly couldn't believe what I saw. A man, floating. He was wearing welly boots, looked see-through almost, and was just staring at me for a moment, then walking down the corridor and dissipating. I was so terrified I got the courage to run to my mum upstairs, and I can't lie, I hid under the covers with all the lights on in the house until the sun came up. Lol. Turns out the person I saw was the husband who passed in the house, and he used to walk around the garden wearing welly boots. The previous lady who owned the house also showed me her cat photos, and turns out the one I saw had just passed away a couple of weeks before we arrived. We had a medium come in the bless of the house soon after my grandpa passed. I was away at university, so he used my bedroom as he was ill. My brother and my grandpa claimed before he died a woman in all black and a man was at the end of his bed having a conversation about the house, and my brother heard the voice of a woman, so it was bizarre. But what gets me even more disturbing is that I found out my bed frame and room was the same one the man passed away in. Even after blessing the house, my cat keeps getting up and meowing in the hallway, and I'm only posting this now because I was home alone with my cat and heard a distinct loud demonic meow come from in front of me when my cat was asleep in the other room. Also, at night, I can hear someone shuffling items and running up and down the hallways, downstairs and upstairs between rooms. If I can get any evidence of stuff moving or photos, I will try. Blessings were said. Mediums came and went, but the house keeps its secrets. Footsteps with no source, whispers in empty halls, and a single unshakable truth. Not all tenants sign a lease. Sleep tight, U/TWTSH. The cats certainly do. There's a special kind of unease that settles in when a house starts breaking its own rules. When perfectly still objects develop a mind of their own. When doors you left open are found firmly closed. When the night fills with sound that shouldn't exist. Toys activating without hands, glasses tipping without cause, lights flickering on in empty rooms. It starts small, easy to dismiss, but then the timing becomes deliberate, almost conversational, as if the walls aren't just creaking, they're answering. Our ninth story is shared by u/realisticlimit8630 on Reddit. Hi, not really too sure how to explain all this, but I'll give it a shot. I moved into a property, rental, the 2nd of Jan. All good, no issues, everything as per. First bit of what the fuck happened maybe a week after. Nobody was saying I was painting and decorating with the assistance of either my dad or friends, at bloody speed as I have 2 kids and needed the help. Anyway, I remember, and this was also witnessed by 2 others, I took the lid off a paint tub and placed it on the floor with the bit that faces the paint facing towards the ceiling, as why wouldn't you? So I'm blasting the ceilings everywhere upstairs with a mate, my dad's downstairs. We get the first coat on and decide brew time. As we are standing in the kitchen, we all hear like a knock with a small echo from upstairs. Hadn't been there 2 minutes, so I ignored it, thought it's just a house noise if you like. Anyways, when we went up, the lid had moved completely from the room it was originally in to the hallway and was now the wrong side up. No, there were no windows open. This is northwest England in January. Not a chance. Anyway, I put it down to maybe kicked or knocked it or something I didn't have the time to contemplate as loads to do. That was the first. We got the painting, wallpapering, and the lot done within maybe 5 to 6 days. I, at that point, had to go back to work for a few days, so my hero of a dad was building wardrobes while I was gone. every night, as at this point I had temporarily moved into my dad's until I could stay. He would tell me this happened today weird, like he would put a bottle of water on the window ledge and go to the toilet or come downstairs to make a sandwich or kick up a pot noodle, and he would go back up to it had fell off and water everywhere. This happened with pencils, screwdrivers also. He was quick to rubbish it and claim there but be a breeze, and when the blinds go up, there's more furniture in the rooms, and the doors were back on it would turn out to be nothing. So after everything was done, beds, doors, the lot, it was finally the time I could stay the night, and I was tired, to be honest, running bulk loads of clothes of mine, my daughter's and my son's. I got about 90% done and decided to call it a day and got a shower, got into bed. I woke that night as I heard a bang and walked out of my room to see my daughter's bedroom door closed. It was 100% open when I went to bed. Again, no windows open, nothing. Yet I doubted myself, questioning if I had closed it. So scouted the rooms, nothing out of place. So again, thought house noise and left it. Fast forward several nights later, it's my weekend without the kids and decide to just hop on the PlayStation and have a few beers while playing with the boys. Anyways, I wrapped up around 1 to 2 a.m., made a drink and brought it to my bedroom, placing on the bedside table. From there, I go to brush my teeth and I hear the glass fall. I ran in, toothbrush still in my mouth, and it's on the floor. This was a full pint glass of water. There is no way this falls with a breeze, so when I'm on edge, no idea, and just choose to ignore it, eventually falling asleep. Now it's not just me no more, it is happening more and more frequently, to the point of last week while my kids were here, I woke up after again hearing a knock to see the hall light on. So I go out, look, and it's not just the hall light, it's the bathroom one also. So I quickly check the kids' daughters asleep, turn the light off. Sons asleep, turn the light off. Go around the house checking every light, and on my way up the stairs onto the landing, I just asked, can you please just leave my children out of this? I absolutely shit you not, my sons play electric guitar, started playing one of the default push button songs. I shit myself, ran in, grabbed it and turned it off before it would wake. I sat in the hallway with that guitar, pulled the batteries out the lot. I couldn't believe it and was genuinely in shock, as if the timing was too perfect. So for some reason in that instance I decided, fuck this, and I woke up my son and daughters to get in my bed. They did, and after about half an hour they were both fast asleep again. I'm on edge, but at least they're where I can see them. Anyways, as I'm drifting off now, a Buzz Lightyear doll is blasting off into space. Same as the guitar, I grabbed it, but this thing needs a screwdriver to get at the batteries, so I just let it say what it needed and shoved it under the mattress to null the sound. After that, nothing seemed to happen for the next hour, so I managed to get maybe 2 hours of sleep. Question is, I'm losing my mind, or does this thing make any sense in any way, and what the hell do I do? The disturbances follow their own logic now. The lights, the toys, the impossible precision of it all suggests something beyond mere activity. Something that listens, something that waits until the children are home to make its presence unmistakably clear. Some houses don't just want occupants, they want participants. Some houses don't just remember their past, they replay it. In a home where the walls have stood since the 1800s, where the land itself whispers of old tragedies, one man discovered that certain sounds don't fade with time. They wait, they linger, and sometimes they shout in languages no living tongue can decipher. This is the story of Reddit user u/Hollander2008. I want to preface this by saying my grandparents bought their house in the 60s, but the house's history goes back to the early 1800s. The town also has a long history of haunted houses and stuff like that, as some of the houses go back to the 1600s. A year ago, I was at the house alone, right outside of the upstairs bedroom. I heard a sound as of two old radio people talking a weird language. It sort of sounded like English, but I couldn't actually make out any of the words. It started out around whispering and got up like shouting level sound. I could hear that it was coming out of my bedroom, so in shock, I slowly opened the door and the sound disappeared. It didn't stop immediately, but when I opened the door, the sound faded out like at the end of songs. I was kind of freaked out, especially because I was home alone. I checked the bedroom to see if there were any old radios or anything that could have made a sound, but nothing. I checked all the bedrooms and the downstairs TV to see if anything was on, but nothing was. This left me really freaked out as I remember that my dad had some sort of vision a couple of nights before. My dad grew up at the house I'm talking about. He said he has really weird and paranormal dreams that has since stopped since he's moved out. However, last year when we were visiting my grandparents at the same time, I heard the weird sounds. He had some sort of sleep paralysis. He said he's never had sleep paralysis in his life, so something in this house is doing something to him in his dreams. He woke up unable to move or sleep, and he said the whole room was in a sort of red tint. He said he had a really big feeling of dread, and like he knew something was wrong in the room. This went on for 10 minutes, but he didn't actually see anything in the room. This kind of freaked me out as well, as I don't know what the hell is going on at this house. The radio voices never returned, but the questions remain. Was it an echo of the mental hospital's history? A remnant of displaced voices from the land, or something more personal, reaching across generations of those who now call this ancient house their home? Some transmissions, it seems, were never meant to be understood. Every house has its secrets, but some keep them in bottles sealed with wax. When a family moved into a home with a strange hollow space at its core, they thought covering the hole would be enough. But shadows don't need doors to walk the halls, and doppelgangers don't need invitations to sit at your table. This is our 11th story of the night by Reddit user u/expertassumptions69. My parents have moved into our current house around 3 years ago. The energy of the house is just off and it feels odd. Hate to say alone at home. I don't know much of the backstory of the house, but I know that a few owners before us were a witch. We have found like those tiny bottles with notes in, sealed with wax, but we didn't open it. We threw it away. The lady who stayed before us said she used Ouija boards and witchcraft in the house. There is a square-shaped hole in our dining room which connects to all the floors beneath the house, which are hollow, where we found the bottle. We always have something over the hole. Anyways, a year ago, it was late at night. My bedroom is across my parents'. My parents can see the hallway while I can only see the entrance of their bedroom. I was getting ready for bed and my mum was already in bed, but she called out, "What are you doing in the kitchen?" And I was confused and told her, "I'm in my room." And she got up. "I just saw you walk in the hallway to the kitchen," which was weird, and we always felt like touches on our hair or clothes. I always used to get nightmares and even refused to sleep in my room because of how bad they were. We have a small apartment in our backyard where the lady also stayed a little while. Also, while we were staying in the bigger house before she moved out. We only have a small backyard because the apartment spans over and kinda connects with our giant garage, which is cut off by a wall, so we could see the apartment hallway from our kitchen window. The apartment had a window there which exposed the hallway. We kept seeing movement there and shadows. It was really freaky. Behind the apartment there's like a tunnel to the bathroom window to connect gas for warm water. That tunnel freaks everyone out, even our current neighbors. My brother's room is on the farther end of the hallway. His window looks out into the large garage, so hearing noises wasn't weird. What was weird was when you heard the floor creak when everyone was in bed. Ouch. I don't know if it's paranormal or just downright weird. Either way, we can't move, so let's just hope nothing out of the ordinary happens again, lol. We have a chair covering the tunnel hole, whatever it's called. Keep whatever is down there down. The chair still covers the hole. The wax sealed bottles are gone but not forgotten. And in the quiet hours, when the floor creaks without footsteps, the family wonders, did they throw away the right things? Some protections aren't made of wood and cloth, but of things much older, much stranger, now lost to the trash. The mountains remember when we were prey, in the dense green heart of the northern Appalachians, where the trees whisper warnings even locals forget to heed. One couple learned that not all cries for help should be answered, especially when they come from something that has never needed help at all. This is the story of Reddit user u/oak ash and thorn. A few years back, I lived in the Berkshire Country, Massachusetts, named for the Berkshire mountain range. The Berkshires are actually a sub-range of the northern Appalachian Mountains, and I assume if you spend any time in paranormal spaces like this forum, you know weird shit happens in the Appalachians. I guess I figured since I was so far north, I was safe from the usual Appy haunts. Safe to whistle at night or walk the woods alone or to not close my curtains after dark. I was wrong. I was either late summer or early fall of 2020, and my fiance and I were leaving the tiny suburb where we lived to go to a nearby bigger city for cheaper groceries. In order to get there, we had a 20 to 30-minute drive, the first leg of which was through a heavily wooded hilly area. It must have been around 6 or 7 during the evening, still bright out and well lit, though visibility was poor because everything is lush green bushes and trees. We were driving up a hill road with a couple houses, both sides of the street full to bursting with plant life. The green was super dense and impossible to see into. It was warm, so we were driving with the windows down. As we got to the top of the hill, we heard a strange noise. My partner and I both grew up surrounded by woods and wildlife, so we know deer when we hear them. Some people who are unfamiliar with deer might think they're serene and totally silent, but when deer want to be loud, they can make some haunting sounds. Especially if it's a male calling long distances, it's like a long booming honk, like a war horn. Think in the family of a bagpipe, but with an edge that clearly marks it as animal instead of mechanical. Anyway, we recognized it as a deer, but it sounded wounded. The honk was distressed and wobbled at the end like the deer was losing strength. Unfortunately, people speed in the area, and it wasn't unavailable that some jackass had hit a deer and drove off without calling animal control or helping in any way. We couldn't see skid marks, blood, or any body on the road, so I asked my fiance to pull over into someone's driveway so I could check the dense foliage on the sides of the road. Deer like to hide themselves and hide their babies, and I, a bleeding heart animal lover and also an idiot, was on the verge of panicking about how we were going to help this injured baby deer. I was already making plans to visit the veterinary hospital in the area that kept late night hours as I began pushing aside bushes and looking around. I've never interacted up close with a deer, so I was making soft little "come here kitty" sounds, cats being my only reference at the time. I searched the bushes on the side of the street with the houses, which was slightly less dense because of the driveways, but I found nothing. I checked both ways and crossed to the heavier wooded side and began looking there. I don't have the best eyesight to begin with, so sorting through the green was difficult, and it took me some time. My fiance was busy speaking with the homeowner of the driveway we were parked in. He had come out to see if we had had an accident or flat tire and if we were okay. Luckily, I heard a rustle. My heart dropped as I realized it was right against the edge of the road. in the very first row of bushes, not an ideal hiding spot for a deer, which meant the poor creature might have been in worse condition than I thought, if it couldn't drag itself deeper into the foliage. I moved downhill towards the sound, placing myself right at the crux of the road's turn, a blind corner. The rest happened so fast, but for me it felt like slow motion. I bent down to move some branches aside where I thought the rustling had come from, hoping that the animal wouldn't run or try to jump at my face. I was so entranced with finding it, with helping. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I had left a hurt animal behind. I finally cleared to the bottom of the bush, seeing the ground with its leaf litter. Baby deer camouflage nicely into fallen leaves and dirt, so I stared into the space hard, but there was nothing there. No shape, no eyes, no movement, just dirt. Still, I felt compelled to stay there in that position, back to the road. It felt like if I just looked long enough, the deer might appear in front of me. What actually appeared directly behind me was a speeding minivan taking the turn way too freaking fast. There were no sidewalks on the street and no guardrails. There was just the blind turn, a bad driver who couldn't calculate right, and me at the edge of the road, not looking. I heard the van, and that alone forced me to rip my eyes away from the bushes. I threw myself out of the way of the van and into the leaves, tripping backwards until my back hit a tree that steadied me. I had been only a moment and a few inches away from being absolutely creamed. The van didn't even stop, didn't acknowledge that they'd almost flattened a person. My fiance called for me. The search for the deer, which we hadn't heard call again since we first pulled over, was too dangerous to continue. I looked both ways about 1,000 times, panicking, and jittered my way over to the safer side of the street and the driveway we were in. We got back into our car, listened a moment more, and left on our grocery run. My fiance could tell something had happened, and I believe they had suspicions that something other than just the car spooking me had occurred. I didn't want to talk about it. We were still driving through the woods, after all, and we'd have to drive back this way. I kept it to myself, the pull I had felt, the hypnotic way I could have spent hours looking into that hollow in the bushes, the way I felt so sure I would find the injured baby I was looking for if I just stayed right there in that spot. The way I was so sure now as we pulled away that there wasn't and had never been an injured deer. Something called me to that spot, and I ignored all the appellation advice I had ever heard. I answered, and I almost ended up a smear on the pavement for it. I don't know why. Whatever was there wanted to cause someone's death. I don't know why I was able to avoid it succeeding. I don't know a lot of things about the motivations of the old things that live in the Berkshires, what they are, why they do what they do, if they hate us or if they're just hungry. But what I know is they exist. They're dangerous, every bit as dangerous as their southern cousins. The northern Appalachians may not be as popular of a topic, but they're no less old, wild, or vicious than the southern counterpart. I guess I'm posting this because I want people to know that, to remember that. These mountains are older than bone, older than the rings on Saturn, and shit just as old exists here. If we lose sight of that, if we think some miles of distance and our different state boundary protect us, we are walking into a trap with eyes wide open. Be careful in the Berkshires, be careful in the Appalachians, wherever you are on them, and if you hear something call to you, no you didn't. The grocery trip was completed. The minivan never stopped. And in the years since, the question lingers, was it malice or hunger that called from those bushes? The Berkshires keep their secrets as close as the southern ranges keep theirs. One truth remains clear. When the old woods call your name, the wisest answer is silence. There's a moment in every explorer's life when curiosity turns to terror. when the abandoned house stops being a playground and becomes a stage, when something else waiting in the wings. For three friends drawn to a decaying home at the edge of a mobile home park, that moment came floating down the stairs in a blood-red dress, screaming with a voice that wasn't meant for living ears. Tonight's last story is shared to us by Reddit user u/Kingslayer1190. This was when I was kinda new to the paranormal and experiencing things, but after I worked at a haunted county museum that at one time was what we call the poorhouse. Me and my parents lived in a mobile home park. Behind the property was an abandoned house and a barn surrounded by trees. Two friends and I decided to explore it during the day one time just to have something to do and check it out. Nothing happened that day or the next night, but we did lose the flashlight the night before the incident happened. The day of the incident, we went to retrieve the flashlight, and again, nothing happened, but I got this odd feeling like, hey, you should leave because there's something here that was disturbed. The night of the incident, as we were walking to the house, I got that same feeling, and unbeknown to me, the older friend had the exact same feeling, but neither of us said anything. We get to the house and walk through the house and reach the porch. The porch was blocked by trees, which means it had sit for some time. How long it was sitting there abandoned wasn't known and still isn't. The reason we were originally exploring it was because we heard rumors going around the mobile home park that it was supposedly haunted, so we wanted to check it out. As we're standing on the porch, we hear this scratching sound come from the upstairs portion of the house, so we decided to go investigate it and see maybe if it was just an animal. The oldest of the friend group and I checked one bedroom while the other friend checked the other. We didn't find anything, so we decided to call it a night and leave. Going down the stairs was the oldest friend, then me and the other friend in that order. We get maybe halfway down the stairs when the friend behind me starts yelling to move. I turn around thinking maybe an animal or something came out of one of the rooms, but instead I see this transparent floating woman who's screaming. Apparently the oldest friend had turned around too and seen the entity and was starting to freak out too. We originally ran towards the porch but realized that we couldn't leave that way, so we go back through the house. The entity is standing floating at the bottom of the stairs and still screaming at us. We found the exit and ran all the way back home, which was a good quarter mile or less back up the road. We actually had run all the way through the mobile home park until we got to my home. We sat in silence for a good 5 minutes until I had asked the other two what they saw. We all three described the same woman entity. We never went back after that, and there was no activity for any of us, which means the entity could have been attached to the abandoned house. I don't remember many details about her face, but I remember her floating, screaming, and wearing a red dress, and we could see right through her. That was one of my most intense encounters I've had since I was 15, and something I won't ever forget. I still don't know what she was, if she was just a restless spirit we unknowingly disturbed, or something much more worse like a demonic entity. The mobile home park still stands. The abandoned house likely still decays. And somewhere between those trees, a question lingers in the silence. Was that screaming woman a prisoner of the house, or was she its warden? The friends never returned to find out. Some doors once opened are best left forever closed. And so, campers, as the embers of tonight's stories fade, remember this: the world is far stranger than we dare to admit. Whether it's voices from the past, shadows that walk on their own, or things that call to us from the dark, some truths refuse to stay buried. So sleep with the one eye open, keep your flashlight close, and whatever you do, don't answer when the night whispers your name. Until next time, stay wary and keep the fire burning.
As the night gets longer and the darkness creeps in, with the eerie silence broken only by whispering wind, come gather round the fire, the flickering flames, and hear the tales of the spooky and the strange. A chill up your back, a shiver up your spine. You'll be haunted by the things that you find. Legends will unfold and stories will be told at the scale